Hello and a very warm welcome to all of you. This is NCRT's live phone-in program. My name is Tanvi Khurana and today we are going to discuss a very interesting topic, which is storytelling as language pedagogy. With our expert, let's meet our expert. We have Professor Varda Nikalje. Ma'am, welcome to our studio.
Thank you so much.
Ma'am is from Department of Elementary Education, NCERT, and in this discussion, we are going to talk about storytelling as a process. There is a series and there's a lot NCERT has developed, so ma'am is going to talk about that. And if in case you have any questions regarding this, please send it on our YouTube channel, which is NCERT Official. You can write your questions in the comments section. And you're watching us on Swam Prabha's channel number 31, Kishore Manch. Let's begin with our discussion. Ma'am, the very first question from my side would be, earlier, children used to love listening to stories. But the scenario has changed. The children have changed. They're growing up in a different manner. So is it the same still? Do they still enjoy the story? Do they still listen to the story as excitingly as they used to before?
Well, children still, I believe, love to listen to stories. They listen to stories, but yes, as you said, the scenario has changed. I mean, if you think of centuries ago, that when there would be tribes and small societies, it would be the able-bodied young men and who would go out hunting. It would be the very old and the very young who would remain at home, and it would be these old ones who would teach the younger ones, and generally it would be by sitting around a campfire and narrating stories. So since time immemorial and across cultures, stories are enduring. Stories are always there. They have been there and will continue to be there. But yes, as you said, there has been a change. We no longer live in large joint families where we used to have memories of our grandparents telling us stories, our elders telling us narratives. Sometimes it would be real about local heroes, sometimes it would be imaginary about local myths and legends, but yes, they were situated in a local context. But the media has changed all this. I'm not saying for the worse or for the better, but it's a change. And then now there is so much of visual input and audio input that sometimes I think that children's imagination has been given short shrift. When a grandmother told a tale, she didn't have audio or visual aids. It was all voice modulation, facial expression and so on, and the children's imagination would fly. No longer would the grandmother be there, but there would be so many other things, and there of course imagination would be there, which the media has overtaken. So children, yes, do love to listen to stories, but maybe in a different way, and that is why the role of the teacher and the schooling has taken over storytelling.
Okay. So ma'am, what kind of stories could they be for the children specifically, with a happy ending, something motivating, something with a message, inspiring, or just funny regular fiction stories?
It's funny you should say that. There's been, I should say, quite a lot of misconceptions about children's literature. Children's literature is relatively new because we have our epics, we have novels, we have short stories for adults, but children's literature in India specifically has been maybe around 150-200 years of duration.
Okay.
Earlier, yes, there would be stories. I mean, we know about the Panchatantra and others, but they were written with a specific purpose in mind. The Panchatantra was written addressing young princes who were going to become kings and how they ought to rule, and kind of teaching them through stories because they were not interested in education per se. So that again reinforces my point that stories can be used for language pedagogy.
Okay. How do these stories fit into the school curriculum?
In school curriculum, we have two concepts. One is within the textbook and one is beyond the textbook.
Okay.
So within the textbook, we particularly I'm talking about the primary stage, because young children, they really love to listen to stories. So in the primary grade, for example, in this textbook here, where we have book 1, Raindrops, this is a special series which talks about everyday life and the animals that they see around them. So one of the stories here is about a mouse. That Chotu is a baby mouse. Chotu runs around and his mother calls him, come back, because he has run away from the tree, and he does not listen, and a crow comes and picks him up, and things like that. But you can see here the questions are very interesting. The questions are not like there used to be earlier, which are the 2 birds mentioned in the story, or which is the baby animal mentioned in the story. It's not like that.
Okay.
The questions are, have you seen a mouse? Where have you seen it? What does a mouse eat? These are questions which take off from the story, going beyond and into the everyday reality of the children.
Okay.
It has nothing to do whether about the story. Have you seen a mouse will make them talk. So it's encouraging listening and then making them to speak about what they have seen, a mouse in their home, or even a computer mouse or anything. So it goes well beyond the textbook.
Okay. Ma'am, so other than the textbooks, what are the other supplementary material that NCERT has developed?
NCERT has developed quite a number of things, I should say. One is the English language learning kit.
Okay.
And in this, one of the items that is present in the English language learning kit is these spiral bound stories.
The monkey and the elephant.
This one is titled The Monkey and the Elephant. So in this story, it's very difficult to write simple stories. This one is addressed to grades 1 and 2, and though grade 3 can also make use of it, because as you can see here, the language used throughout is, each sentence is made in the simple past.
Okay.
So a group of monkeys, they were here playing. They heard the loud sound of the elephant. They ran up the tree. The elephant came close. So these words in simple past have been put in bold so that the teacher can slowly introduce the grammar item of simple past.
It's like teaching the children slight grammar.
Yes,
Okay.
but very unobtrusively. They wouldn't even know they are learning grammar, and I think that's the best way to teach grammar, because grammar people think is dry and dense and complicated, and I don't know,
And
but they all have negative adjectives for it. So this in the kit we have this, and NCERT has also
We've got more
been
material?
instrumental. Yes, this has been developed by SSA Arunachal Pradesh, and NCERT provided academic support for these. These are a series called Orchids, and these are 30 in number.
30.
They are of levels, 3 levels. One level 1 which has only 1 sentence, 1 illustration and 1 sentence, and the other one 1 illustration, 2 sentences, and then level 3 which has 1 illustration, 3 sentences.
That's it?
Yes, and they are all small booklets, as you can see, and
Very thin ones.
yes, not more than 15 to 20 sentences. An entire story has been told in these.
Okay. Can you show the viewers one of these?
Well, any of these would do, I'm sure. I think
Anyone?
we can see one of these stories.
Just show the viewers one.
Yes.
Like this.
Hold it up.
Yeah. Maybe you can just hold it like
Okay. This is a story, 2 mountains, which you can see. The illustrations also are very simple. The narration is also simple. We have taken care to include only the local names and the local context. I think we can show it in the form of a PPT,
Yes,
one of these stories here. One of these stories, one of my favorites in this series, is titled Assam and Arunachal. As you can see here, long ago the Creator made the earth, He made the land and the seas, and then he created a Superman and a Superwoman. He named the Superman Chudubo and the Superwoman Chutne, and then he asked them, go down to earth and make the land flat and plain so that mankind can use it for agriculture. And Chudubo, he went down, he started making the land plain from the north. Now remember, this is an Arunachal Pradesh story, so when they say north, they mean the north of Arunachal Pradesh, near the Himalayan region.
Okay.
And we call this land now Arunachal Pradesh. And the lady Chutne, she also began to work. She began work from the south. This is what is known as Assam today, the plains of Assam. She worked very hard, very patiently.
Okay.
And now we see that there is a bat, and this bat wanted to play a practical joke on these two. So he went to the Superman Chudubo and he told him that Chutne is working faster than you.
Okay.
And Chudubo was working, but then he believed the bat, and then he got so angry that he threw down his instruments and he started stamping his foot. Now when a Superman stamps his foot, you can guess what will happen. So his stamping made the land hilly.
Shake.
Yes, it made it hilly, up and down, hills and valleys. And then Chutne continued to work slowly and patiently. She made the land plain, and that is why Assam has plains. Assam has plain land and Arunachal has hilly land. So I want to say that, you know, if you tell a child of grade 1 or grade 2 this story in your mother tongue, in Hindi or in English, I mean, and this addresses the issue of multilingualism. You can tell this story in the mother tongue, slowly introduce 1 or 2 English words, and then, you know, introduce more and more so that you would reach the target language, English or Hindi or whatever.
Okay.
I want to say that if a grade 1 or a grade 2 child listens to this story, and when the same child goes to grade 6, and the geography teacher gives some geographical reason that this is why Arunachal is hilly and this is why Assam is plain, the child would remember this story, which he or she has heard in grade 1 or 2, where the main fact is this, that Arunachal is hilly and Assam is plain. So you are indirectly teaching geography. Also you are teaching gender equality, because God gave the man, Superman, and the Superwoman the same task. So he didn't differentiate. So why should we differentiate? Who are we to differentiate? And we have values, of course, of hard work, but we also have the children would hopefully imbibe the value that that one should not believe anyone who comes and tells you something. We should also see the motive, why the person is saying something. If someone is offering you a chocolate, why is he offering you a chocolate? Do you really have to take the chocolate? And so on. There's a lot to be learned from our folk tales and folk narratives, I think.
I loved this story. I think it's a wonderful way to explain the children, because they are growing and they have sharp minds, and if you tell them in such an interesting story, they'll grasp a little bit faster than the normal boring way.
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much for that. Let's come back to this. So why did you particularly chose this example or this tribal series in particular?
I've always, as I said, believed that our India has a rich literary tradition.
Right.
And our rich literary tradition can be seen in our oral, languages. The orality, after all languages began orally. And script came much later. And children's literature much later, as I would say. So I think that instead of exposing or instead of giving our children stories from abroad, we should also make them aware of our own identity. They are rooted in their identity, and it's important for them, just as their own language is important, their culture is also important. The food, the festivals, the dress, the hair, all these contribute to one's identity. And these, as I said, in Arunachal there are 15 major tribes and 22 minor tribes, and we have tried to take stories from the major tribes, and this was the happy result. It's not, I mean, there were so many tribes there, they all belong to languages of different families.
Okay.
It's not that there's just diversity. In India we have 1650 languages, and the Northeast itself has 300 languages, and Arunachal has the highest number of languages in the Northeast.
Which is how many?
I think around 66, I think, as far as I remember. So, not only is there diversity, they also belong to different language families, which makes it difficult for one tribe to understand the other, because the vocabulary is different, the grammar is different, the structure is different.
Right.
So, they use Hindi or English as a via media.
Okay.
And that is how this idea of stories for children came up. Not only would these children know about their own tribe, they would also come to know about the other tribes, the stories, the kind of world view that they have. And not only these children, children all over India, all over the world would know that there is so much diversity in our country, and that there are so many kinds of cultures, but at the same time they would also recognize that there is a commonness of humanity in this.
And also it will encourage them to see and explore their own country rather than going for the outside world. Okay. Ma'am, is there anything else you want to talk about the Orchid series?
Oh yes, there is. For example, there is, should I hold up or should I keep here? There is this story I was telling you about Wuni. This is from the Miji tribe. There are so many tribes there. I mean, we have taken stories from the Tagin, the Nokte, the Shingpo, the Adi, Mishmi tribes, and so on. There are too many to name.
Where are these tribes from?
They are all in Arunachal Pradesh.
Arunachal, okay.
The SSA Itanagar, Arunachal Pradesh, took interest in this project. This was a collaboration between the center and the state, between NCRT and the SSA of Arunachal Pradesh. That's how it happened. You can see here in this illustration that the dress, the hairstyle and others were maintained, and the illustration also we have tried to keep it. I mean, there was a professional artist and a child from class 9 who did the illustrations.
Okay.
There is another, this one is titled The Foolish Son, and as you can see, the walls and the flooring, these are showing the typical bamboo pattern that one sees in the houses of the Northeast.
Ma'am, in the bracket it's written something.
Yes, it's written Tagin folktale. So in every story we have written the origin, from which tribe it originated, these stories.
Okay.
So also we took the, while doing the illustrations, we took the help of the culture societies as well, so that, you know, if they are very sensitive about particular colors being used or particular tribal designs being used and so on. Okay. So we also took the help of the culture societies. Okay. There's one more story here which I'd like to just talk about if there's time. This is the Dove's Cry, and this is an Adi folktale. And the very first thing that intrigued me was this one. Long ago, mother-son had a baby, you know. So in all the stories that I've heard and the various cultures that I have kind of visited, either, you know, by reading or by through visuals, I've also always had this feeling that or always been exposed to cultures which considered the sun to be masculine, and the moon sometimes is feminine, and sometimes masculine, but the sun is always masculine. And here there is a tribe which said that mother-son had a baby, and like all working women, the mother-son had to go up in the sky and shine, and so she entrusted her baby to a dove. Okay. And the dove could not, I mean, it ends in a tragedy. So that is why this story is titled The Dove's Cry.
Ma'am, can I ask, why is this sun red?
They imagined it red, it's red. If you look at the sun for a long time, then it will appear red. You know, they wanted it red.
So that's the imagination.
Yes. And which brings me back to the point that you had mentioned, that all children's stories need not have a happy ending.
Yeah.
We need to come out of this misconception, that children's stories should only be about flowers and trees and baby rabbits and baby deer and have a happy ending. No. In life we have tragedies as well.
Yeah.
A pet cat may die. It's important that children should know about these things.
And be prepared.
And children they also like to have, giants and soldiers, and they like to hear about battles as well as other stories.
Yeah.
So all I'm saying is, we should not, in our haste to protect their innocence, protect again in inverted commas, we should not give them a lopsided view of the world.
Okay.
So I think that's important, and these tales do cover all that.
It is very important, because children too deserves to know the truth that life won't be smooth for the rest of the life. So the ups and downs will always be there, and it's important to tell them with time and with these stories.
Yes.
Okay. Ma'am, would you like to talk about the skills required for the storytelling?
Yes. I think that anyone who wants to tell a story should practice beforehand. It's not easy to tell a story. It may seem to be the simplest thing in the world, but then when you actually begin to do it, you realize that first of all, you ought to have a sense of the audience. Are you talking to children of the primary stage? Are you talking to secondary stage? Or are you talking to adults? Because adults love to listen to stories as well. I mean, in a different context maybe, but yes. And then you have to choose your words carefully. Are you going to tell them the events consecutively? Are you going to do a kind of a flashback? If though, are they ready to imagine that flashback and then come back to the present? And most importantly, I think the storyteller would have to employ voice modulation, because only when they roar like a tiger or caw like a crow or hiss like a snake, only then can they capture the interest of the students. And they should use their hands, their face, their eyebrows, many
expressions.
And they should speak in a language which is comfortable for the children. It can be the mother tongue, or it can be any other language that the child would be comfortable listening to. Okay. Make them comfortable. I mean, I know teachers use flashcards and teachers do use props, but these are secondary. One has to use the human voice. The human voice, I think, is the best instrument for storytelling. And above all, I think that there should be no moral, no direct teaching, no preaching. No one likes it. I mean, you wouldn't like it if I started preaching to you.
No, I won't.
So when we don't like it, why should we impose it on our children? So, and children are very perceptive. They will pick up the values that are in the story. You don't need to kind of underline it and finish it. Imagine a grandmother telling you a story, the same one, Assam and Arunachal, and then saying, see, that is why we should always work hard and things like that. Then I don't think the child would ever go to that grandmother anymore. They would prefer to go to other grandmas or grandfathers. They would certainly not like to be preached at.
I'm thinking of another angle to this. There shouldn't be a message or a moral of the story, because there always could be more possibilities and various perspectives of the reader.
Exactly.
I might think about something else after reading the entire story, and someone else will take out something else.
Yes. There could be, even if there are 2 or 3 values, as you said, you may pick out a 4th value.
Right.
And even among these 3 values, to me one may be more important, and that may dominate my understanding of the story. To another person, something else may be important. You do have a kind of a cultural perspective, whether you like it or not, but then there is a cultural perspective, and that colors your understanding of any story.
Okay.
And of course, the most important thing is that one should love listening to stories and one should love telling stories.
True. So, ma'am, is there any particular pattern in which you tell stories? Because, you just said, there are different genres, novels, there's short story, there's...
There are, yes.
There are. So, are there separate patterns for each and every genre?
There are patterns, yes. The genres that you have mentioned, I mean, there would be too many.
Yeah.
That would require a different interaction altogether. Focusing on the primary stage, the stories can be simple, can be, when I say simple, I don't mean only simple words in the sense of 3-letter or 4-letter words. The vocabulary needs to be
More
seen,
engaging?
more familiar to their surroundings. For example, if I am telling a story to a child in Srinagar and I use the word houseboat. Now, houseboat has 9 letters, so it looks like a very big word. But to that child, it's not difficult at all because he's been seeing houseboats all his life or her life. But if I use maybe a small word of 4 or 5 letters of something which is not in his environment, then that will become difficult for the child. So, the vocabulary used, I mean, they need not always start with once upon a time, but then they have to plunge the reader into the story by creating interest, with a very good first liner that should create interest.
Ma'am, these stories, these series, are they in English only, or is there any other language translation in this?
No, this one is in English.
Okay.
And this was because the SSA wanted to keep it in reading corners in all the classrooms. So, in Arunachal Pradesh, they have kept it in the reading corner. They have gifted 3 sets to each primary school. They tried it out as a pilot and then used it in all the schools. And the children do love it because it's just kept there. It's not part of your examination or grading. It's just kept there. Children just go, lift a book, and then they begin to read. Even if they read it, even if they hold it upside down, but at least they're having a book to look at, which many of them may not even have in their homes. If parents don't have story books at home, they may not have. So, the very fact that they're holding a book makes them happy.
Yeah.
And then they browse, then slowly they get interested. Teachers also tell the stories. I think my advice to all teachers would be that please keep a repertoire of 30 stories in your mind always, so that even if you go for an arrangement period, or even if you go, you want to link something with your EVS or maths or science, I mean, you can do it through stories. Use the vocabulary that is going to come in the next lesson in a story.
So, you're suggesting the teachers to utilize the time by making the kids develop the habit of reading.
Yes, through first storytelling, and then it would follow story reading, because reading habit is dying out nowadays.
Okay. Do you have a similar message for the students?
Students, well, I don't know. Students should listen and enjoy stories. There's a lot. I only want them to look around and not just look at publishing, books that are published abroad, but books that are published here as well, and to begin to recognize the richness of our own literatures.
Okay. Is there any other collaboration NCERT has with any other state?
No, but then that need not be so. I mean, each state is free to take up stories in their region and then develop a series of their own. Of course, we would be happy to provide academic support, I'm sure, and that of course would take a series of workshops. It's not to be planned in a hurry. It shouldn't be done in a hurry.
True. And this is for standard 1, like you said?
This is for, it can be kept in grades 1 and 2.
Okay.
Though it can also be used in grade 3.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, ma'am, for introducing me and the viewers to this very interesting Orchid series, and the name is very interesting and the books look very appealing and very cute. So I would definitely like to read a few if I can borrow.
Yes, sure.
Thank you all
Thank
of
you.
you for watching this program with me and the ma'am. And let me tell you that from 3rd of February onwards, there is a special program for all of you, which is called Exam Helpline Guidance for Students, for all those students who are going to appear for the board exams, be it 10th or 12th. If you have any stress, any problems regarding your board exams, then please send your queries to us. Our email ID is ciet.kishoremunch@gmail.com. You can also contact us on our social media handles. And let me tell you, tomorrow we'll come back again at 4 o'clock with a new topic, and the topic would be current electricity part 2. The part 1 has already been done. We'll take over from part 1. So I'll meet you tomorrow. Till then, take care. Goodbye.